Good afternoon. Welcome to the Richfield City Council meeting this 10th day of March 2015. We have an open forum and we have several people, but this is the way we should do it. We're going to have the items pertaining to the band shell. We will do it during item number 5. And right now, we'll just do the, the folks that wanted to speak on an issue, upcoming issues that are coming up for the future. And one of the first is Susan Rosenberg. Susan happens to be the president of the League of Women Voters.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Susan Rosenberg. I am the president of the Richfield League of Women Voters, and tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about an upcoming event that's coming this Saturday. And it's a very important event for the League because we have been planning this all year, and I want to thank Edwina Garcia, Maureen Scaya, and Carolyn Engeldinger. They have taken this, and I've got the, can you see that, all that? Yeah. This will be held this Saturday, March 14th, between 9:30 and 11:30, and it's a forum on mental illness in youth. And this is a real important topic for all of us, and something that I think would be a really educational event, because the goal is to educate and inform people about mental illness and to help reduce the stigma surrounding it. And so we're going to have a really a big panel of experts that's going to be here to speak on this. And it is sponsored by so many of our organizations, not only in Richfield, but around the state, and from the Washburn Children's Guidance Center to Adler Institute, the League of Women Voters, of course, and Headway Emotional Health Services, and Canvas Health, and Richfield's Advisory Board of Health. So this is a very big event and very important. So I urge everybody to come this Saturday right here in City Hall between 9:30 and 11:30. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. And I think people needed to hear a different voice because I've been talking about this for about 3 months now.
Have anything else to
Yes.
add?
So I hope folks will attend because it's a very valuable forum. And next we have Heidi Gabor. Welcome, Heidi, and don't forget to sign in.
Good evening, and again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't know how many of you on the council, staff, or general public are aware, but last Friday, Richfield lost an excellent citizen. Some younger residents might not even recognize the name, but those of us who have lived here for years and who have watched the city council proceedings have deep respect in our hearts for Larry Wozniczka. He was a gentle man, a friend to many in Richfield, and valiant in his struggles for justice in the city. When Larry was able to participate in the civic process, he was relentless in his search for facts and truths and would respectfully bring these to the council's attention. Larry was green before being green was even a thing. He would walk and bike around the city, encourage conservation of green spaces, reuse and recycle, and repair rather than throw out. Larry lent a helping hand wherever he saw a need. I am so very sad to say that Larry has passed on and will no longer grace our neighborhoods and meetings. But he is now in a better place, and from there, he just might occasionally help guide some of the council to his common sense way of thinking. Although he was a humble man, in solidarity with those who knew Larry, I'd like to recognize him now for his good works, his dedication to our community, and a life well lived. Rest in peace, friend.
Thank you, Heidi. Very, very well said. I think for a lot of us that knew Larry, and I knew him since the 80s, early 80s, that's one thing about Larry. He did his homework, and he knew his issues with the city. And, and he was always at council meetings. He was always at work study sessions. He was always a presence. But the one thing, like that Heidi said, you know, he was a very respectful man. He was a decent, respectful man. And he came and spoke almost, I don't know how many council meetings, maybe most of them, I would say. And he did it in his own gentle way. And we've always appreciated him because, you know, we knew that, you know, we had to be on top of the issues. And there were times when, you know, we had to revisit an issue because he brought up something that we hadn't thought about. But we will miss him, and you know, I wish we had more citizens like Larry Wodnicka. I don't know, you guys want?
Heidi, you'd be interested to know we had a work session tonight on transparency in the city budget. And there is a program on the city webpage now where you can drill down into the budget very deeply. And you could almost feel him looking over the shoulder because I witnessed a lot of his questions and inquiries into budget matters. And it's like Edwina said, he was respectful and everything, but he took no quarters and gave no quarter. And it kept everybody on their toes, and I think it was a benefit to the city to have him in a resident and also questioning what the city was doing and making you give good responses on why we were moving in one direction or another.
Thank you, council member. Okay, and let's see, now would you please join us on the Pledge of Allegiance? Now we have approval of the minutes of the special city council work session of February the 17th, the special planning commission and city council work session of February the 23rd, special city council work session of February the 24th, the special city council meeting of February the 24th, regular city council meeting of February the 24th, special city council work session of February the 27th, and special city council work session of March 3rd, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
If I might add, all those special work sessions and everything, there's no overtime involved, right? Just want to make sure everybody
for
knew
us.
Well, if there is, then somebody should have let me know. Okay, now we're going to have, we're going to do the hats off to hometown hits. We've got someone in the audience from the Human Rights Commission, and we want to welcome him, Mark Westergaard.
Thanks for giving me a little bit of time here. I spoke to the Human Rights Commission recently and pitched this idea. I don't know if you can read that okay, but it's like you're zooming in. The idea is that we wanted to have a discussion on human trafficking. I had seen one once before in my past life recently. And we had also talked to the Advocates for Human Rights. We partner with them on a lot of different things. Then I find out that they're doing one tomorrow night at the Minneapolis Public Library. And so I reached out to them and I said, would you be willing to come to the Human Rights Commission meeting to just give a rundown to the commissioners? And they said, sure. I happened to be talking to the mayor, and the mayor said, why don't you talk to the council and see if this is an okay idea for a public forum, maybe in the big room back there, to have the same person come by. This is the flyer for them doing it tomorrow night, but it would be something very similar to this. And so I'm just asking, this would be sometime in mid-April to mid-May, depending on how the schedules sync up.
And I think the League of Women Voters has had one meeting to discuss the whole issue. So have you contacted them or worked with them?
I have not. I have talked with Breaking Free as another organization, but I have not talked to the League of Women Voters on this particular issue.
Okay, so maybe we should connect you so that, you know, right now, like it's like this forum that we're doing. We've got the League and the Advisory Board of Health and a number of organizations. I think the more co-sponsors we have, you know, the better we're going to do.
Yeah, it's a great idea. No sense duplicating efforts either.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
You bet.
And did you sign in, sir? Okay.
Here.
Okay, now we've got the consent calendar, Mr. Devich.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. The consent calendar, for those folks in the audience, both here and at home, includes several separate items which are acted upon by the City Council in one motion. And once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and the recommended actions will also have been approved, and no further council action on those items will be necessary. Tonight there are 5 items on the consent calendar, starting with consideration, item E, I should say, consideration of the approval of a resolution supporting dedicated state funding for city streets. Item B is consideration of the approval of an amendment to the site lease agreement at 7401 Logan Avenue South between the City of Richfield and T-Mobile Central LLC with regard to the location of an antenna system. Item C is consideration of the approval of first reading of an ordinance amending the city's code. The proposed ordinance would allow the following in a single-family residential district: construction of up to 2-story garages with conditions, and construction of accessory dwelling units. Item D is consideration of the approval of a first reading of an ordinance amending the city's zoning code. The proposed ordinance would prohibit recreational marijuana sales outlets and marijuana production, and establish conditions related to the location and operation of medical marijuana dispensaries. And then finally, we have item E, consideration of the approval of a resolution authorizing the acceptance of grants and donations received by the Richfield Recreation Services Department, and to authorize the city to administer the funds in accordance with the grant agreements and terms prescribed by the donors. And that concludes tonight's consent calendar.
Okay. Do I hear any motions?
Move the approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we go to a public hearing, and this is the second reading of a transitory ordinance providing funding for certain capital improvements from the Special Revenue Fund. As part of the capital improvement budget and annual city budget process, certain special revenue funds are allocated each year to fund capital projects identified through the budget process. The source of the special revenue funds are profits derived from the city's liquor store operation. The profits are transferred to the Liquor Contribution Special Revenue Fund. Before the funds within the Special Revenue Fund can be used for the identified capital projects, the city charter requires that a transitory ordinance be used to authorize the expenditure of the funds. In addition, the ordinance process allows for public input through a public hearing. The proposed funding for 2015 totals $450,000 and encompasses several park and recreation related projects. Finally, the staff is requesting approval of the funds within the Park Maintenance Project Fund used to complete 2 projects. These projects were completed using special unspent special revenue funds from prior years. The Park Maintenance Project Fund is used to account for the various park projects that are funded with special revenue funds. The 2 completed projects are as follows: $9,200 for the ice arena, training room skate tile, and $7,600 for Veterans Park building restroom improvements. And this is a public hearing, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Devich, and he can give us more information. Or at least translate what I said.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. You know, for those folks who aren't that familiar with how the city uses funding for capital improvements, there's a long process that has to happen. And first we start off, and I want folks to know that the origin of the money that comes for virtually all of the kinds of amenities that we have in our city regarding the recreation and things like maintenance of our parks, the ice arena, those kind of things, they all come from the liquor profits that we have from our 4 liquor stores. And so the money goes from the liquor stores, it gets put into a special revenue fund, and from a special revenue fund, it's moved over to projects by ordinance. And so, you know, when we talk about some of these amounts of money, and Mr. Regis can comment on this further if there's any questions about it, but often you're looking at the same amount of money several times. Once when theoretically, you know, you might approve the use of liquor proceeds or capital improvement money for a project, and then you have to go through the whole process of doing it. And actually, Chris, I believe even before some of these things can be spent now, there'll probably be another time on some of these that they would come back. Is that true?
Not necessarily. Once they go through this, it's pretty much where the project is ongoing then, and it's also previously approved through the 2015 budget process. It always goes through the budget process first, and then this is kind of the second stage before final approval happens.
Right, but like the money, if it's used for a contract, then the contract's gotta come back and be
yeah.
approved. So what I'm trying to say is it's gonna be, it appears many times before it's actually spent.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, and I've got a couple of folks that want to, Birgit Johnson. I think you know that the ritual about signing in.
Yep, I'll do that at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. My name is Birgit Johnson. I live at 6332 13th Avenue South in Richfield. I have lived in Richfield for over 30 years, and it's my home. What I don't like is the awakening I have received after looking into the political process here. Now, it may be so everywhere, but it is also here where I live. Years ago, the city cut down 208 trees at Vetts Park behind the backs of the Minnesota DNR, and this is where my education in local politics started. Since then, the city has schemed to build many things into the park without any thought of the environment, the neighbors, and the people who enjoy this natural space. The city, in fact, sticks to an old plan to turn green into brown. For years, the city has had intentions to add a duplicate bandstand, which was to be built with donations and the help of $250,000 of liquor store profits into Vetts Park. It turns out the spot chosen is one of the worst conceivable spots, as the area needs expensive amendments, such as $125,000 plus due to bad soil. It is near the airport, right under a flight path, to name a few. There should be no surprise that there is little interest in an amenity that could only be used for several months a year because of our climate. The pool is in use for about 2.5 months a year. Recently, we have seen in the paper a small announcement for a public hearing of a transitory ordinance to fund the community band shell. A transitory ordinance can be a good tool for the city to use to accomplish many necessary things. In this case, I don't find that to be true. Since there is no financial support for the band shell and the citizenry has not come forth to fund the gift, we, the citizens of Richfield, will now have no choice, and we will pay and continue to pay as the huge costs climb. Since the band shell
Excuse me, but can you wrap up? Because
Yep.
your time is almost
Okay.
up.
I urge the city to give all the naming rights to the citizens of Richfield. I would start with the money stand. After all, just think of all the profit you will receive for charging people to use the publicly funded gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay, and now we have Jan LaVictoria.
Hi, my name is Jana Victor. My address is 6301 Newark Avenue South, number 103, Edina, Minnesota. I was a resident of Richfield for 5 years. I lived at 5 on the west side of the park, close to where the proposed band was. I just really want to say that in all the arguments that I've looked at this issue, every one of them says Vetts Park is not the right thing. The land in Vetts Park, according to Richfield, is already fully developed. So to develop it further goes against Richfield's own document. There is no public support for this. In fact, there's way more outcry about it than there is public support. There's 4 people on the website that support it, 2 of which have withdrawn their support. So you have 2 people that support. The funding, there is no funding. You're taking money from the liquor store sales, $250,000. Listen, why don't we scrap the bandshell and boom, you got $250,000 in your budget to spend much more. The environmental issues are a lot at that park. This is open space when we've already got a bandshell paid for and built on brown space in Richfield at the at the Lindell Garden. The other issue brought up was the airport. We're gonna put a bandshell right under where the runway is based on the airport. I live 2 blocks away. All those houses got MAC improvements because of the airport noise. Now you want to put a bandshell right under where those airplanes are going to fly. That does not make sense. This does not make sense when all the issues about Betts Park.
Can you please
say
wrap it
that
up?
All the issues at Betts Park, they don't do it. And I think we need to really.
Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone else want to speak? We ask folks, if possible, to fill out the yellow cards that are in back of the table, the room. So,
Sorry, I didn't know that that was needed for an open hearing too. Again, Heidi Guy-Bohr, 6915 Wentworth in Richfield. Now, I realize you don't answer questions at open hearings, but I'd like to pose some just so that you can actually hear the numbers out loud and think about the questions. 1, how much public money has been promised to the Bandshell Committee so far? 2, with this $250,000, what will the total city contribution be? Is it $325,000? That's $250,000 already. Or will it be more for what was meant to be a privately funded amenity? And is there anything in the city charter that limits how much public money can be spent on wish list amenities without having a referendum? From what I understand, what was presented to the city council as a revised budget of $400,000 is actually just for the basic stage and roof. The committee's goal is still a $1 million dream. And little by little, they are chipping away at the city council to continue donating, and somehow the money continues to be approved and siphoned away from more necessary projects and budgets to go to the bandshell. Personally, I don't think that the bandshell is needed, being that we'll have a performance stage of mixed use, public and private, at Lindell Gardens. There will, the fact that Betts Park is under a flight path and the land is boggy are 2 other reasons for not building the bandshell. But more than anything, it appears that Richfield residents don't want it either. There have been very few private donations for this fund, for this project, which was meant to be funded totally by private contributions. Now the city is taking over the funding for this questionable project. Thank you.
thank you, Heidi. Anybody else want to speak? Please come up.
Good evening. My name's Christine Aylen. I live at 6733 Columbus Avenue, a block and a half from the park. I've lived there for 20 years, and I'm a frequent user of the park. I've seen it come back to life. We've gotten eagles back in there. It's a great way to honor our veterans, preserving the park, protecting the wildlife. The other thing that I want to say is it is over a flight path. It makes no sense. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said, but I came in to support the same thing. It's the rationale for putting it there. It doesn't work. And feels like a courtroom here, so I'm just going to say the jury's in on it. It's not a good place to do it. It's the wrong place. And we can have a win-win if we put it somewhere else. Okay. Thank you.
Did you sign in? Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Yes, sir? Let's try not to repeat what's already been said so that You know, if you've got new information or new thoughts, then that's fine.
Well, it's too late now, but I agree with this. I think it's 250,000 we could spend somewhere else. The committee is just like sending your kids to college. Every time they come home or call, they want more money. Who's gonna maintain it? We're gonna spend upwards of $1 million for something that's gonna sit empty 90% of the time. I just think the whole project doesn't fit. It's too much money for what little gain we're gonna get out of it. That's all I get. My name's Terry Straub, and I've lived in Richfield for almost 40 years. Thank you.
Can you sign in, please?
Yes, I will.
Anyone else want to speak on the, yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Susan Myers. I would just like to add one more thing. Originally, the plans for a band shell in Richfield were 1 to 1.2 million. There was no support, financial support. So the amount was lowered to 400,000 at the June 14th, 2014 band shell task force meeting. There were numerous questions, people saying, you really think you can do that? Asking about, what about this? What about additional money for various other parts of the project? And the band shell task force members repeatedly said, no, $400,000 is the absolute maximum. That's it. There will be no more. Now we find that that plan apparently has been scrapped, and I think that they should be held accountable for that and kept to the 400,000 as an absolute max. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you sign in? Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, I will move then that we close the public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Discussion?
I have a discussion probably for the city attorney. Is it possible that we could have a separate vote on the community band shell? I know it's all in one spot here, and when we approve this, we're going to approve it all, but is there a possibility of having a vote just for the band shells section?
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, if the council wishes to remove an item from the ordinance, I think that's within the council's authority to do that. This is a second reading. This was for the council in a prior first reading. But if it wishes to remove an item prior to final approval, that's a decision up to the council.
Well, having said removing it, does that mean we can't vote on it tonight then? I mean, is there a possibility of I don't know how you would do that, but doing a line item vote, if you would call that, and just what I'm trying to say is that I wouldn't be in favor of one of these items, but the rest, and I'd hate to, you know, say no to all the rest of the good items we have versus the one item I still have problems with. So.
Councilmember Fitzhenry, my thought would be that if the council voted to remove an item, that would then have to go back and go through the ordinance process as a separate item.
What we're doing, though, is we're not allocating any more money. This is already passed, the vote. So what are we going to gain by doing this?
Well, if I can just, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, the issue is that that while this already has been voted on once in concept by the city council, as I stated before, because the money has to go through so many different steps, at this point, it's a second reading of an ordinance, and I'm wondering, I don't know that we can kind of make law on the back of a napkin here, so to speak, but I'm wondering if you, I'm just talking off the top of my head. I wonder if you had the exact same wording, Ms. Dejan, and it was split into two different ordinances. In other words, where instead of one transitory ordinance, it became two. And it had the same wording, except that where the, in section 2, you, one of the ordinances had every item in it beside the community band shell, and the other one had only community band shell in it. Does that make any sense or not?
Wait until they're done.
Probably not, huh? That's why I'm not an attorney. Yeah, on the
Kind of
fly.
thinking on the fly here.
If I may add another kicker just to make it a little bit more difficult for
Sure,
you.
go ahead.
It's starting to look too easy so far.
Well, the first thing I'm looking at is, what we're doing here is authorizing to be paid from the Federal Revenue Fund. That doesn't, to me, connotate absolute payment, or it's going to be made now or later. What we've got is a question, and the constituents raised it. We don't know where it's going. Right now, the city, that was the seed money that the city council agreed to put up to kickstart a band. I was 100% okay with the seed money because the band shell was in the favor of the community. I voted against the location. I voted against the additional $75,000. I still think a band shell is appropriate for the community. I'm still not, I don't believe it belongs over, but notwithstanding that, the point being is right now we've got $325,000 committed by the city. We have a representation that the committee has put together $75,000, which doesn't even get us, or just barely gets us to the $400,000 that's been talked about. It seems to me we're in a position, we can authorize this, but if they don't come in with a viable pool of money to build a band shell, this is going to go back to where it started from in the first place.
Right.
And so if in fact you citizens sincerely believe that the commission fundraiser isn't going to get to that magic number they need to even make them happy with what's projected or what can be built, this money isn't going anywhere but back into the coffers and be paid on something else for the benefit of the city. Am I wrong about that?
Right, and Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Elliott, I think that's correct. This ordinance provides the authority, authority by ordinance to allow that expenditure to occur. This project hasn't been approved to go forward in any, the council approved a location, but there would have to be plans brought back to the council at a later date for final approval of that. And, that remains to be seen as far as when or whether and where that's going to happen. This ordinance simply provides the authority for the expenditure. It's not, doesn't dictate a location, doesn't dictate, final plans for the project. So that would all have to come back to the council at some point. So and maybe that's just another way of saying what Councilmember Elliott just said, but I think that's correct.
No, I understand that. Thank you.
And to Councilmember Elliott's point, I wasn't on the council when the council approved Veterans Park for the site and this initial resource. But to some of the comments that were made about concerns about costs actually running up to $1 million and that there's only this $400,000 approved, from my perspective on the council, it is important that it was an important positive step to see that price tag go all the way down, and I'm certainly not interested in seeing that price tag tick up, and I think there's still issues to be worked out with the project if it can work with that $400,000. But to Councilmember Elliott's point and to what we've heard, it sounds like this vote isn't an authorization. The final vote of those funds, there's still issues to be worked out in a final plan to be before us.
And with that being said, I guess my main point on this is I committed to a contribution of $250,000 for band shell. Once again, I didn't approve of where it's going, but that's a vote that's passed. But sticking with my commitment is something I intend to do. But watching what comes before us, and I don't think the community, if 400,000 is all they can get, I'm not sure the community should accept that in the first place. The money ought to go back and go to a better purpose. I'm going to reserve the vote on that, but right now, I made the commitment to the $250,000, and I'm going to stand by that. but you better believe that the commission's gonna have to step up and the members of the community that really are, if in fact they're really behind this, are gonna have to step up and do something too, or it's gonna go away.
Okay, Councilmember Fitzhenry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, or Mayor Pro Tem. I'll go on the record saying I don't want to approve the ban shell based on the location. That I voted no against it before due to the location. I'm not totally against a ban shell in Richfield, and I do agree that we should look at what happens at Lindale Garden site first. But in the interest of moving this along and having a vote later on that ban shell, I'm inclined to let this go through because there's so many other good things happening, but I'm going to reserve the right to object later when we get to the funding of the ban shells.
Okay, and I think that will be happening. When do you think that'll be happening, Jim?
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Yeah, I'd like to reiterate a couple things, but it's not the intention of the ban shell committee to ask for more money than what's been appropriated, and that by the city so far is the $250,000 with tonight, and another $75,000 that was voted on, I believe, in June. The rest of the money that makes up the $400,000 total is coming in pledges and donations. It's not our intention to ask for any other city money other than that. So there is a cost overage on the project right now, and our idea, our only strategy that we have, is to work with a person that's connected with the Peterson family to try to solicit discounted services, materials, try to work with contractors to actually give us more for less. And that's how we're trying to make up the difference. If we're successful at doing that, then we'll come with plans, we'll come to you with the approval for plans and specifications. Right now, we're tentatively planning on doing that in May. We're going to go to the Planning Commission first in April to go through the site amendment plan review to see if there's any other city requirements that we have to consider when building this thing. And so it goes through a review of our ordinances, that sort of thing. And that's when we'll consider going to council then for plans and specifications in May. If we're unsuccessful at finding those contractors to find us breaks, that sort of thing, then I don't believe we do have a project. So that's where it stands with the committee and our plans.
So this is still a work in progress, and I think the fundraising is going to continue until, you know, even after the initial money has been sought, and because we do maybe later on want to add certain components to that band shell that we right now can't afford and probably won't put in, but may add to it later on.
That's correct. The Peterson family has a number of good connections that we can draw upon for things like sound and lighting, and we're hoping that those items will be donated. But again, I mean, we have to be successful at doing that before we have a project that we can bring to you.
Okay. So I'm going to make the motion and see how it goes. Okay. I move that we approve the second reading of the transitory ordinance providing for the expenditure of funds from the Special Revenue Fund for certain capital improvements. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now we have, I believe, Councilmember Fitzhenry.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 6, as soon as I get to it. This is a consideration of the acceptance of the bid, minutes and tabulation, and award of a contract to McNamara Contracting Incorporated for the 2015 concrete sidewalk, curb, and gutter repair project in the amount of $1,043,602.30. and authorize the city manager to approve contract changes under 50,000 without further council consideration. Rather than read the whole executive summary, I see that we have our Public Works Director, and he can kind of explain what this is all about.
Sure. Madam Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, this item is to do the sidewalk, curb, and gutter repair work that for the mill and overlay area that we'll be doing next year. And I think that the one thing I want to point out on this, it's a rather routine item, except for the fact that our low bidder was not a competent contractor. And we discovered that and rejected him as a contractor and ended up going to the second low bidder. And I should point out, you may have noted in the newspaper a contractor that got some attention from Scott County and Hastings County for, I believe the right word is forging bonding documents, and was charged, and this is the same contractor. So, I mean, it's a pretty clear case of a contractor that's not qualified. So, I guess that would be the only unusual element to this. Otherwise, it's a contract to do the concrete repair work ahead of the mill and overlay that we'll be doing next year.
Good.
Okay, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and recommend the action that number one, we accept the bid minutes and tabulation and award a contract to McNamara Contracting Incorporated in the amount of $1,043,602.30 for the 2015 sidewalk curb and gutter concrete repair. And that we also authorize the city manager to approve contract changes under 50,000 without further city council authorization.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay, now, Councilmember Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This item involves the 69th Street reconstruction project, and we're being asked to accept the bid minutes, tabulation, and award contract to Ryan Contracting in the amount of $1,541,254.30 for the 69th Street reconstruction project. We're also being asked to authorize the city manager to approve contract changes under $100,000 without further city council authorization, and approve hiring WSB and Associates to perform construction engineering services for a fee not to exceed $139,262 for the 69th Street reconstruction project. And Mr. Eastling, you do it so well. I'm going to turn it over to you again.
Yeah, oops, a few more details here. This project includes the replacement of storm sewer, sanitary sewer, and water main. So all of the utilities underneath 69th Street, and from Knox Avenue to Humboldt Avenue. There are currently 4 large 36-inch storm sewer pipes that, with failing joints that's causing multiple sinkholes along the roadway every year. Anybody that walks that road maybe sees that. This project replaces the 4 pipes with a 4x8 box culvert. Replacing the pipes with the culvert will build additional stormwater storage capacity for the drainage area and creates a potential to achieve upstream flooding relief with a future project at 66th and Newton. The city's approved 2014 capital improvement program and 5-year reconstruction plan identified this project in 2015. Otherwise, the bid opening went as scheduled. And so, well, one thing I should point out, and I know that Councilmember Howard was not on the council at the time, but last year when we had a discussion about the stormwater on the west end of town, and with the higher rainfall events that we're seeing, we're looking for opportunities to provide better flood protection on that end of town. This is kind of the low end of the pipe, and so this matches the size of the pipe that goes under 35W today, and is lower and and has the potential to provide increased flood protection on that west end of town. In order to know more about that, as part of the 66th Street project, we're looking at the drainage in that whole end of town, and we'll tie into this pipe, you know, if that makes sense, as was kind of outlined at the meeting in October.
I can attest to the sinkholes. They're definitely there. Yeah. With that being said, at this time, I would move to accept the bid minutes, tabulation, and award contract to Ryan Contracting in the amount of $1,541,254,000 $1,000.30 for the 69th Street reconstruction project. Authorize the city manager to approve contract changes under $100,000 without further city council authorization, and approve hiring WSB and Associates to perform construction engineering services for a fee not to exceed $139,262 for the 69th Street reconstruction project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you. Mr. Devich?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, I really don't have anything specific to report on today.
Okay. You know, one thing I forgot, we didn't do hats off to Richfield. Do any of us want to do any?
Last time I took yours, Councilmember
Oh,
Elliott, so I'll let you go first.
I just want to say the combination of daylight savings and the weather made it an absolute joy to walk through the neighborhood at 7:30, and everybody's out. Everybody's dogs are out, the kids are out. I haven't seen this in Richfield in a long time. I grew up in Richfield, and our baseball field was the house where the Hinz family lives now, and we hit it into the house across the street. And I walked down Morgan, and there was 5 kids out in the middle of the street with the bases in the street playing baseball. And I know city manager probably doesn't like people playing ball, and I know the public safety doesn't, but it was an absolute treat to see kids 8, 9 years old playing baseball in the street. I love it. And they're using tennis balls, so we don't have to worry about windows and all that stuff, so the city attorney can take it easy. But, you know, it's you know, after this winter was a minor replica of last winter. Last winter, we had no fall. We had absolutely no spring. It was cold through the middle of April. I can't tell you how, to me, it warms every part of my body just being out and walking around, seeing people and seeing kids playing baseball in the street. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, I will say first, I hope Councilmember Elliott just didn't jinx us with
Got a week anyhow.
yeah.
according to him.
And I also have some serious nostalgia about playing baseball in the summer. But my item I was going to mention was the work session that we had this past week or a week ago, a planning session for the year, which I thought was just a great opportunity to talk about some of the priorities. And there's just a lot to be excited about here in Richfield. And I'd encourage anybody who does have ideas to pass those along to all of us here. I think there's a group of people really excited about considering anything we can do to make Richfield a stronger, better place in the future.
Thanks. Couple items. First, since it's after the fact, I want to thank the people that did make comments at the council meeting tonight for being very respectful. It's you got your point across in a respectful manner, so hats off to you for that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is Noise Oversight Committee, they'll be meeting at Richfield again since MAC has torn up their room there. So I would encourage Richfield citizens to come check it out and meet with the council members. But it'll be on Wednesday, March 18th, and it's at 1:30 in this room. And what you'll see is some discussion. They'll talk about what's currently happening with the airport and that. And it's a lot of good information. And we got a couple questions we're going to ask them too before that meeting. So if you want to know about airport issues and see how the system works and how we work with that system, I encourage you to attend. So.
Good, thank you. Well, I don't see any other further business, so why don't I move for adjournment?
Did we do claims and payroll
Oh,
yet?
did we do that?
Yeah.
We
need to do
yet?
claims and payroll. So I'll move claims and payroll.
Okay, good.
And we take a vote on it then?
And here I was saying to Councilmember Howard that he messed up the first meeting and he didn't bring it forth. So that was my mistake now.
Well, at least we got it.
We got it done, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I move for adjournment. Thank you.